preseason tests in Barcelona have finally begun, and the moment the Red Bull RB22 rolled out of the garage, the entire Formula One world stopped to watch. Cameras zooming in, engineers stopping mid-conversation, and in the Red Bull garage there's Max Verstappen standing silently observing his new car complete its first laps on track. This wasn't a simple shakedown, this was Red Bull showing their cards for the new era. The RB22 didn't grab attention with flashy colors or dramatic wings. Instead, it whispered something far more dangerous. The Sidepods, or rather, how impossibly small they are. From certain angles, the car looks almost impossibly thin, as if someone squeezed the bodywork too tight and forgot to stop. Engineers in the paddock immediately started circling photos, drawing lines, zooming in, all asking themselves the same question. How the hell did Red Bull achieve this? Stay with me, because what I am about to explain is fascinating. When the Red Bull RB22 emerged from the garage in Barcelona, the first thing that struck everyone was the sidepods. They're incredibly small, extremely thin, almost impossibly compact. A prominent technical analyst described the RB22's bodywork as extremely streamlined, comparing it to an even more extreme version of what Mercedes had experimented with in the past with their ZeroPod concepts. But Red Bull didn't just copy an idea, they pushed it beyond all expectations and into uncharted territory. The front section of the sidepods is shockingly small, and the air intake area has been reduced to a level no other team has dared to try so far. It's a bold and risky choice that could either be brilliant or disastrous. While most teams arrived in Barcelona with large and generous cooling solutions, playing it safe with their new power units, Red Bull did the exact opposite. They chose risk, they chose efficiency, they chose speed above all else. It's an aggressive philosophy that didn't come from nowhere but builds on years of experience. Already in 2025, Red Bull had started playing with unconventional cooling ideas, including an additional air intake mounted above the sidepod. That intake exploited the high-pressure air created by the cockpit itself, something other teams had largely ignored. Now with the RB22, that thinking has been taken even further. The sidepods are narrower, the air intakes are smaller, and everything about the car suggests aerodynamic performance has been placed above almost everything else. It's an enormous gamble. What makes all this even more fascinating is the contrast within the Red Bull family itself. While Red Bull Racing went ultra-thin with their minimalist approach, the satellite team. Racing Bulls did the exact opposite. They arrived with oversized air intakes and a much more cautious cooling approach, clearly prioritizing reliability over pure performance. It's a divided philosophy playing out in real time on the same track. One team bets heavily on efficiency and aerodynamic gain, the other protects reliability and plays it safe. And everyone in the paddock is asking the same question: who's right? Who made the correct call? There are also rumors about an additional air intake cleverly hidden between sponsor zones on the RB22, barely visible to casual observers. Its exact purpose isn't completely clear yet. It could feed extra cooling air to critical components, or it could have a purely aerodynamic role, shaping airflow toward the rear of the car. Either way, it's another sign that Red Bull is using every millimeter of available regulatory freedom. And then there's the double barge board stay. This detail might seem small, but it's one of the most discussed features in the paddock. Red Bull's solution closely mirrors what Ferrari did with the SF26, suggesting both teams independently identified this area as a key development zone. When rival teams arrive at the same idea, it usually means something important is happening. But the real topic of discussion is what analysts are calling the cannon outlets of the sidepods. These are completely new for 2026. Instead of simply dumping hot air out of the sidepods, Red Bull appears to be directing that airflow with precise purpose. The hot air is expelled in a way that energizes airflow over the car's rear section, potentially increasing aerodynamic load while also reducing drag. In simple terms, Red Bull might be turning waste heat into lap time. It's not just clever, it's audacious. It's genius if it works. To make this extreme sidepod concept function, Red Bull has clearly shifted some cooling responsibility elsewhere. The airbox on the RB22 is notably larger compared to previous years and has a shape more similar to what Racing Bulls uses. This central airbox feeds the engine and hybrid systems through ducts running along the car's center line. By moving more cooling capacity there, Red Bull can afford to reduce sidepod air intakes without immediately risking overheating. And this matters more than ever because 2026 power units have changed the game. The combustion engine actually needs less cooling than before, but the much larger hybrid system produces more heat. Every team had to rethink their cooling strategy from scratch. Red Bull's answer is clear. Minimize the aerodynamic cost of cooling, even if it means walking an extremely thin line. It's a dangerous bet. As the RB22 continues its first laps in Barcelona, the question hanging in the air is simple but absolutely terrifying. Has Red Bull nailed everything perfectly, or have they gone just slightly too far beyond the limit? The new power units aren't tested in actual race conditions. Test laps are short, fuel loads are low, stress levels aren't representative. A full Grand Prix distance is a completely different beast altogether. If Red Bull underestimated how much heat their hybrid system generates during a full race stint, they could be forced into emergency solutions. Opening bodywork, adding cooling vents, sacrificing the aerodynamic gains that make this car special. But if Red Bull got their calculations exactly right, the reward could be absolutely massive. Every square centimeter of bodywork removed reduces drag significantly. Every clean airflow path adds aerodynamic load. In a season where everyone's learning, where setups are guesses and simulations are still catching up to reality, starting with an aerodynamic advantage could decide championships before summer arrives. The new 2026 regulations allow teams to position ducts in areas that simply weren't available before. Radiators can now sit in new positions. Air can be fed to systems in more creative ways. Red Bull didn't just explore these freedoms, they attacked them. So let's recap. Red Bull brought to Barcelona a car that left everyone speechless. Incredibly small sidepods, extremely thin, narrower than any other solution seen so far. It's the opposite of what others did. While Mercedes and Ferrari are cautious with generous air intakes, Red Bull chose extreme risk and efficiency. They've moved cooling to the central airbox, which is larger, and they've minimized the sidepods for enormous aerodynamic advantages. The cannon outlets of the sidepods transform waste heat into performance. It's genius if it works, but it's also a dangerous gamble. If they underestimated the heat from 2026 power units in races, they'll be forced to open bodywork and lose all the advantage. But if they nailed the calculations, the reward is enormous. Less drag, more load, an advantage that could last months because others can't copy it quickly. Red Bull hasn't lost their hunger. They haven't softened with success. They're still willing to bet when others hesitate. The RB22 is proof that dominance hasn't made them cautious, it's made them bolder. And as those impossibly thin sidepods continue slicing through Barcelona's air, the rest of Formula One watches, waits, and wonders, is this the next masterstroke, or the moment Red Bull finally dared too much?